Starting over from zero, part one, information gathering mode. Okay, so I've fielded over 100 questions in the past month, and I provided video responses to all of them. And much like the video I'm recording right now, I'm sitting in my environment and just talking about what I see. Now, recording this many responses has been fun because it provides me with enough data to get a pulse of the questions being asked by the data-driven community, and also it provides me with insight as to where I can improve future offerings and hit the mark with our content. And here's the funny thing. Aside from marketing questions, which are pretty much very platform and campaign specific, the most common questions that I receive, they're about the order of operations for starting, growing, and scaling a business. And of course, each response that I provide is a little bit different, and it's because I'm tailoring it to the recipient based on how they ask the question. But I did think that it'd be nice to create a series of videos that talks about the steps for getting traction early on and moving forward in the right direction with the business in general, or even a career. Sound good? Okay, cool. And so for the first video, I wanted to talk about starting over from zero, and in future weeks, I'm going to talk about the additional steps that you might take. I'm not sure how many videos this is going to become. I have a pretty rough outline, but I do want to talk starting from zero. And so today, I want to talk about the first step that I would take if I were starting over from zero. And in fact, this is the exact first step that I took as I wanted to figure out how to take Jeffalytics to my full-time occupation and eventually create what is now known as data-driven. And so I'm going to share both my recommendation and my experience as to how you start over from zero. Okay, so it all starts with the research and information gathering phase. And so that's what we're going to talk about here. Let's talk about research and information gathering, the first step of starting from zero. Okay, so here's the first thing. No matter how successful you've been in your career to this point, whether you haven't been successful at all or you were a partner of a 5-time Inc. 5000 award-winning agency like I was, when you're starting over from zero, it's a mind trip, and it really messes with you because you're used to really focusing on one thing, which is your previous employment or your previous passion, and now you're starting over with no real knowledge of something. Now, you might have some knowledge from an online course or you've read blogs or something like that, but you don't really have the full vision as to what you want to achieve. And so I don't know about you, but that can be overwhelming. And so that's what I call information gathering mode. And so even though I'd already been successful in one phase of my career, going back to create online products was something that was a trip for me. I needed to gather as much information as I could. I needed to research and figure out what I wanted to do. And so that research involved figuring out what business model I wanted, what type of products I could offer, whether I wanted to do physical trainings or if I wanted to do virtual trainings or video products or, mailing out DVDs to somebody, even though that wasn't really even popular when I started doing this. That could be something that you research. So you basically just try to figure out exactly what you're going to do. And when you research, it involves a lot of reading and a lot of listening and a lot of just soaking in knowledge. So for example, you might read blog posts of all different varieties and all different areas. You might focus a little bit on paid advertising here. You might focus on overall marketing strategy there. You might focus on the analytics like I talk about that. I'm guessing that you read some of that stuff because you're on my list or you found me somehow, right? So that stuff's interesting or important to you. You might also take online courses. Frankly, an online course is much like a book. An online course is the fastest way that you can really get the knowledge you need quickly by learning from somebody else's summary of how they look at things. So online course can be very valuable for getting you that knowledge instead of having to read thousands of blog posts and trying to find an answer and having all this vagueness. Seeing somebody's online course can get you the answer you're looking for. Same with reading books. Those things are usually much more in depth and get you as to what you're looking for than if you were just reading blog posts, for example. And so information gathering is a combination of those things. It's getting resources, usually free resources you get off the internet, different calculators, PDFs, ebooks, checklists, all kinds of things that you get, and it just helps you understand what you're going to do. So I remember myself, I was looking at and evaluating whether I should buy a course on how to create an online course when I decided I was going to do online courses, or maybe I should do a membership site, or maybe I should do something where I'm doing one-on-one coaching. All these ideas were out there that came out while I was doing information gathering, and frankly, I was a little bit overwhelmed by it. There were just so many options, and I was like, well, which one of these things is actually going to work for me? And which one of these things is the right way to go? Like everybody tells you that their solution is the best solution in the world, but is it really the best solution for you? And so information gathering mode can be daunting and overwhelming and confusing because you're getting all kinds of different information from all kinds of different places. And so while it can be overwhelming, there's also a lot of value in it because this is where you form your thesis as to what you're going to be doing next, what focus area you want to have, and what it's going to look like when you get your business off the ground. Or even if this is just your career and you're not focusing on running a business, the same thing applies, right? It's basically how do you build momentum to something that is greater than you so you can excel, so you can succeed, so you can win in the end. And the cool thing about information gathering and research is you can stay in this mode as long as you need. There are a lot of people who have had a steady job for the last decade and they've been reading every blog they can get for the inevitable day that they try to go out on their own. And then when they do it, they can succeed because they have a pretty good idea as to what the vision is and they've assembled the puzzle together as to what they want to do. And there's other people who are always in information gathering mode and they think that the next piece of information is going to be the thing that solves their problems, that's going to change their life. And I'm here to tell you that the next piece of information is never going to change your life. Next piece of information is not really what courses are for, what all this information is out there to do. What it's really meant to do is to give you a single nugget or a single perspective that you can use to form your whole perspective. And so while you can do information gathering mode for a long time, I think that it actually can hurt you if you do it too long because eventually it gets in the way of taking action and you think that information is the answer to things, and it's not. Action is the answer. Okay, so information overload is inevitable during this phase. You will have this 100% of the time when you are in information gathering mode. And not only that, but there's also a 100% chance that when you combine all the information you receive, the pieces will not fit. And so that's the important thing here. Don't focus on finding a single final answer because that doesn't exist. The single final answer comes much later in your business and much later in your life. And so what you want to do is you want to focus on developing your thesis as to what it will look like if you can put the puzzle together effectively. And so that thesis is, what does it look like? And so my thesis was simply that if I create an online course or if I create online learning, I can tap into my already successful offline learning or my learning in the classroom. I can scale and travel the world as I want to. The delivery, the marginal delivery of these things doesn't really cost that much, and I don't need a huge team to pull this off because it fits into my skill set. And so my thesis was that if I focus on this area amongst all the other areas that I could focus, then I'll be successful if I put in the work and I can really go out there and achieve what I'm doing. And so my thesis was that if I create Data-Driven You, eventually that, or my Jeffalytics Academy or my individual course websites, it will be successful, and that I like that model the best. And so even if it gets tough, I like that business model the best, and I like the vision for it, that I'm going to see it through to the finish line. And that's really what kept me going during the hard times, because it wasn't always easy. And in fact, it's still not always easy. There's always hard times that goes into this. Okay? So the next thing is, what will it look like when it's all said and done? What will it feel like when you achieve your goals? How will you spend your time once that goal is done? And how big do you want this business to be? So look at that perspective and write it down somewhere. Tuck it away for safekeeping and come up there with the vision as to what it's going to look like once you take your information, once you've gathered all the information possible and you assemble it to your puzzle with the pieces you have. Remember, not all pieces are going to fit and not every piece is worth your time, so you might want to throw some of them away. But what does it look like? Write that down and then tuck it away for safekeeping, because that's going to give you the momentum you need, the vision you need to say this is worth the time that it's going to take to make this thing work. Because you have a long, long step ahead of you, a long road ahead of you if you want to start over from zero, or if you want to start over from where you're at right now, even if you don't have zero. Obviously, if you're subscribed to me, you're pretty advanced because you wouldn't be going to data first and foremost, right? So you have invested some items, invested some time. I would recommend writing down what you're trying to achieve out of this thing, tucking it away so that you can then have that to draw back to or refer to over time when you think that it's not worth it or if it's not worth the effort. Because usually that goal is much better than a goal you'd have of just staying employed, for example. Or if you are employed, it would be better than having a goal of just simply staying in the same job and not getting promoted. So that goal is basically what's going to be coming next for you. And then what you want to have next, what goal you have, is going to choose the steps you take moving forward. And so that's all I have for you on research and information gathering. You can be in this mode for a long time. There is such thing as reading too much, though, because eventually it just starts to contradict itself, and there's no more marginal gaining you can get from getting all the information. Just enough information is better than too much information, in my opinion. And so eventually you want to make that choice as to writing down what it's going to look like, what your picture is, what the puzzle is put together with all these pieces you have, and then start to act on it. And so we're going to start talking about what you can do once you have that puzzle assembled and what you look like, what your business looks like in the future. We're going to start talking about those items pretty quickly here in the next set of videos. And so hopefully you enjoyed this perspective, just getting started, talking about the first phase, and I look forward to sharing more of these with you in the very near future as we get through this video series.